GSP was fighting Bisbin. Bisbin was obviously putting on a show, calling them all sorts of names. George came up to me by the water fountain. He's like, "Hey, Harney, Michael called me a toi. A toi. What is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, what? A toi?" I'm like, "Oh, he's called you a twat." And he's like, "Oh, okay." He was like asking me what it was. I had to just explain to him, and he's just like, "Oh," he just looked like, "Oh, okay." It was pretty funny. I was like, "Oh, yeah."
You had to be his translator for UK English.
That's it.
That's funny.
That's great. Let me ask. Obviously, GSP is one of the considered. He's often brought up in the GOAT conversation.
Yeah.
Does being in his presence, does knowing him personally and being able to, in some cases, get some tips off of him or whatnot, is that like a fountain of knowledge that you are just like happy to run into anytime?
Yeah, it's yeah. So obviously he hasn't. Well, obviously there's been how long is it since the Bisbin fight? Was that 2018?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So he hasn't really. I don't think he's sparred. He's been in the gym, obviously not now, but in the gym. He's a real professional. He trains always. He's not sparring, but he's always training. But before that, he was sparring and doing bits here and there. When I first came, obviously, he was still a little bit, he wasn't kind of retired, he was semi-retired, so he was sparring often. But every time you get the opportunity to work with him and spar with him, it's like you'll learn something, and you'll just see.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You just get to sort of feel that level,
So what are some things about him that you've taken away from him? Because I picture him, like the image you get of him is that he's a consummate professional as far as like, all aspects of MMA, but also just his work ethic and his diet and his mental and all this other stuff. What are some things that you feel have really benefited you by being either with him or just Faraz or some of the other killers in the gym?
Just little things, little technical tips. Like if you say if you wrestle with him, obviously, and he'll give you a tip here. If it comes from the guy that's like arguably #1 ever, it sort of sits with you a little bit longer or a little bit stronger than most things, rather than someone else saying it, it sits in your head and it sort of means a bit more. So yeah, and having like shared rounds with him and done stuff, and it gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So you're like, let's say you're 170, 180. He's walking around at what, 200-ish, or maybe right around there?
So when we would spar more, he was kind of like, he was doing like intermittent fasting, and he was trying to drop weight. I think there was talks of him going to 155 at that time, and so he was like 190 something. So he wasn't that heavy, So I remember he's not that big, and then he was like, oh, he was fasting, he's trying to drop weight and all this. So
yeah, okay, nice.
You see stuff on Instagram where he's stripping down, trying to get to that that lower weight.
Yeah,
that's awesome, dude. That you've to me the biggest thing, dude, that I love about you and your whole story is that you came from a backyard and you've elevated yourself out of the UK, which in some ways is an amazing place to learn and like develop your skills. But like you said, there's a level of training. Like you said, some of the gyms only have one black belt. They have one top level guy, and you've elevated yourself out of that into the this next kind of stratosphere of work. And so, dude, I think ahead of us, you've got a lot of bright stuff ahead of you because of this work ethic that you're putting in and the good decisions that you're making. It feels like you've got some good people around you helping you make some good decisions and keeping you on track.
I think that's the key in it. I think if it was just me, I'd be making some terrible ones.
I don't know, dude. I mean, I think of other guys in the UK that have a lot of talent or have some skills or whatever, and they're kind of they're bigger fish in a smaller pond, and you got to make a risk. You got to jump, right? You got to put yourself in a position where you're a little bit more vulnerable, where you're going to be the new person. You're not going to know as much, and that's a hard thing to do, right? And
for sure.
and it's hard to do even like within the UK to just go to a bigger gym in the UK, go to London, go to Liverpool, go wherever, go to Ireland. You actually, you picked up, you packed your bags, you said goodbye to your family and travel across the world to chase this dream. And don't underestimate that, dude. That's an amazing commitment, and not a lot of people do that. And you did that, man. So yeah, awesome work on that.
Thank you.
Hope you all enjoyed this pod clip. Hit us with the Holy Trinity. Go to our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, which is at HOMIEandTheDUDE. Like, follow, and subscribe to all of those. And thanks again, guys. Have an awesome day.